Philosophers talk to our times, a natural history of middle. In the middle, whether we like it or not. Hume's account of the mind rests on understanding perception as in the middle through another. And it's very interesting to watch how a different philosopher, let's do Spinoza, makes a different move based on a different middle supposition. One, you might argue, is differently valid. Spinoza doesn't have, you see, the possibility, I think, of moving to intensity, liveliness. Because for him, the liveliness of perception is caught up in the different relations with common notions. And so he does have it, but it's a physical thing and can't be therefore used as the root, the engine for a passive synthesis. That means he can't proceed then to the full middle through another position. He does have it for emotions, fascinatingly, as I said yesterday, when he's trying to understand in book 4 how a mind can always free itself to a degree and limit the power of negative affects. He absolutely considers and reconsiders how you can be in the middle through another, how you can use your emotions, ride piggyback on the positive ones to pull out common notions. So, yes, he does have it. But for the basic engine of what makes a mind, he remains firmly in the middle in another position. Middle in another position. And the mechanics are fascinating. Because one of the things about something like joy for Spinoza is that, of course, if it is an inadequate idea, you can form no sensible idea of that which is increasing or decreasing your pleasure. You don't know. If it's a pain, the idea doesn't even exist in God. It doesn't exist. And the full emptiness of that is one of the themes that Spinoza keeps on coming back to, that I always find utterly remarkable, because it is a remarkable idea. So that means, in terms of this argument, you can never form a position as you can with common notions where the idea locates you into a fabric of other ideas, into a set of crisscross communications, each idea caught up in the other as part of what it is, middle in another position. But that doesn't, of course, mean that the mind, which is sentenced to actually exist, isn't in the middle of adequate emotions. It just simply cannot ever, inadequate emotions, it just simply cannot ever understand those emotions. The middle is then foisted on it in a sequence of emotive moves. And as it grounds a chunk of Spinoza's theory of time, it's always worth considering. Joy or pain. Let's start with, it doesn't matter which we start with if we're treating them inadequately. Starts not so much as an idea in the mind, as a feeling. You directly embody it as the essence of another, as the power of another impresses itself upon you. It is like the essence of the other reaches into what you are and shifts and changes you, expresses itself through you. So that you become its phenotype to the genotype of something beyond. And yet, of course, you cannot understand that transformation. It's a thing you feel, but do not grasp. And so, for Spinoza says, you immediately have to take that essential transformation and embody it for yourself. And his first move is you embody it in the presence in which it happens. That presence will include, no doubt, the element that transformed you. But it will also include everything else. Absolutely everything else about that transformation. That present, then, will capture that transformation, but in the context of a wider fabric. It works, then, to embody the essence of the transformation that the mind itself could not directly comprehend. The mind, of course, could not comprehend the transformation of a joy or the transformation of a pleasure. It merely feels it. It is embodying something else. And in trying to understand that something else, it has to hold it in a relationship of love or of fear. It takes then the transformation it was caught up in and captures it in a present. But of course, the minute it's captured in a present, then that present is pitched within all the other presents of the mind. It gets caught up in the mechanics of hope and of fear and of despair and all the emotions that understand then that present and its transformations in terms of the way the mind subsequently changes. What it is to love something then itself causes firmer ramifications across the mind as you look upon that love as something to aim for in itself, something to want in itself, something to lose in itself, and do exactly the opposite with hate. Each inadequate idea, then, as it changes, augments, or decreases the power of the body to act, necessarily gets caught up in an algebra of middles, where the actual idea, it's the actual thing that impresses upon your nature, can never be directly comprehended, because it always remains outside what you could ever be, what you are. But the emotion that it causes endless ripples across what you are, as that failure to understand the basic impress gets caught up in the middle of your nature and repeated and repeated and repeated endlessly, becoming then the fabric of your soul. A soul stoked with inadequate ideas which can never be directly comprehended. This then is the tempest of emotions. Each emotion is complicated. The original emotion of joy or pain was, of course, a transformation. I always say it was a gateway to a future. You were caught up embodying a future that you could not understand. But you had to then express that future as it exists for you, through your own essence, through a second embodiment, capturing it in a present. And then that present, as it is pitched into the rest of you, is caught up in endless other temporal exchanges, so that time itself becomes an object for feeling, hope or despair or desperation. The entire thing is a hubbub. It is worth pointing out here that there isn't much difference. I'm pausing there because there's actually a lot of difference. But in this aspect, there isn't much difference between Spinoza and Leibniz. Both of them have emotive theories of time. But Leibniz, of course, does it on the level of the minutest, and Spinoza doesn't. He does it on the direct transformation of emotions. Both have their strengths and their weaknesses. Spinoza's has all the great ability of the confrontation of pain with something that isn't there, with the transformation that can never be understood, and therefore pitches the way that you can never grasp that which you understand, that which you are differing from, very accurately. Leibniz gets the way that this is all based on the silent whispering of the soul, and that time is that which catches us up by the minutest desires as they yearn towards perceptions to come. They both have their poetry and their beauty. But Spinoza, though, is unique, is different, in that he is creating a genuine difference between that which exists beyond you and the way it affects you, and then how you have to internalize it. There is no way you can reconcile what you are immediately to joy. You have to capture it in an idea that embodies that joy, and then that idea contains further difference. Now, desire, of course, is working across all these spectrums. Desire, as it is the essence of human, isn't the essence to connotas. Any theory of Spinoza that revolves simply around the will to survive has failed to understand the importance of the proposition of about book 3, proposition 7 or 8, where he says desire is the essence of a man. The point is that konatas, the will to survive, is not just the will for me to simply be. Oh no, it's the will for me to be already augmenting. Desire pictures itself inside emotions, so that desire and joy is endlessly trying to augment that joy. That's why it's always open to adequate ideas, to pitching that joy itself as an adequate idea, in which case you would understand its cause and be the master of it. And your desire for it and the joy itself would actually be one and the same. But he doesn't do, but for inadequate ideas, the desire is in the joy, but it's in the love and it's in the hope. And it's the same desire, moving backwards and forwards between them all. Always trying, always yearning, always moving the joy forward, trying to find ways to keep it. Whether that is to battle to keep the present, or to remove the present if it is a despair, or to rummage through it and make it the middle, and by understanding it as a middle through another, understanding how you could exist how you could understand adequate ideas through the inadequate idea of the emotion of joy, through what joy itself actually is. Spinoza then creates an algebra, an entire algebra for understanding how emotions give you a feeling of tense, how one tense has to be embodied by another tense, how there is no direct comprehension, how that initial difference between what fell on you from outside, the inadequate idea, and yourself creates its perpetual ramifications that create what our mind is, the mind of memory, of passion, the mind in which we live. So that humans are sentenced to a mind. Sentenced is the wrong word. It is the price you pay as you exist. It is what it is to exist. A mind stocked with inadequate ideas that is therefore always having to bind everything in the middle in itself. Having to bind it up within the idea of the mind, including the errors. So that you get a mind that is liable to misunderstand what it is. It will misunderstand that middle position and attribute it to something beyond what it is. It will attribute it to the world itself, to see the world as full of hope and despair, pain and joy, good and evil. But Spinoza's point is that that's not the way it's working here. All of those are how you react to the initial change, and the initial change was how you were embodying a power relation that existed beyond you, but that was incomprehensible to you, that was utterly different to you. And I guess I'm using different in a fairly Derridian sense there. You are different from it because you are deferring it into what you are. It is becoming the way you are changing what you are. And you can never directly comprehend the nature of that change. It's a very subtle sequence of ideas and turns time into a middle position and numerous different forms of time. It also, of course, shifts how you understand the relationship between temporalities and impressions. Within Spinoza, just as truly as within Kant, impressions actually only exist within the mind as they are gathered up and held together. Kant, who is using a very similar, who is doing it in his own rhythm and doing it to understand the nature, the homogeneity of time, does make the same set of moves. Apprehension is the smallest snitch of time, the movement forwards, that which runs through and holds together impressions that present a manifold, but never one that could ever be gathered in an emotion, gathered in a single feeling. It is then the threshold, not of the present, but of the future. It's that which says this impression is here, this feeling, but where's the next, where's the next, where's the next? We must always hold these, make every impression open to the future. But such a future, of course, actually only expresses what it is in recollection. in the past that is indistinguishable from it. And once you have the future and the past together, then the concepts build the present and embody that present in this idea, in this here and now, or that here and now, in that cause and that effect, in that necessary movement of time. So that the future is embodied in the past and the past is embodied in the present. Now, Spinoza does it by a future that is open to joy or pain, a transformation that itself needs to be caught within a present. And then that present is then pitched across the time of a mind. For Spinoza, this is the stuff of emotions. For Kant, this is the stuff of the intuition of space and time. So Kant has evacuated all feeling from this. It's one of his great weaknesses, because he creates a mind that is only capable of really understanding space and time on the level of understanding, which might ground reason, but it grounds reason as an impersonal personal witness of the world, that in the words of Hegel or Bergson doesn't actually live in the world. Spinoza, of course, is making the same move, but grounding it in the actual living of the world. But the move is very similar. And that's why. And why? Because the minute you are committed to understanding the world in terms of middle in, you don't really have perceptions. Perceptions imply nows, and nows imply moments, etc., etc. That entire Kantian trap. No, perception is born changing. It's born in the difference. It's born in that which is altering the mind. And then you inhabit that. You could say, is that really true for Spinoza? The answer is, of course it is. Because Spinoza has presence that can move. The entire position in deeply nerdy this, but if you look at the lemmas after Proposition 13 in Book 2, it's very clear that memory, the soft squishy bits that record the action, the refractions of simplest bodies, while memory exists on the side of individuals and the refraction exists on the side of simplest bodies. The effects of that is that one memory could contain within it movement. There's nothing stopping it, because the movement refers to simplest bodies that are always defined across each other, so that they will be defined in the actual way they are moving the elements of the individual that is remembering them. It's a deeply nerdy point, but it probably matters because it frees up a conception that Spinoza is bound by the now, because he really isn't. His entire theory is that it isn't bound by the now. It's always caught up in movement and in change, and that which creates the change that lies beyond it, the middle. So, or at least is that which is expressing itself through the change. I think I'll put it that way around. So that you get this complicated being caught up within, this middle-in position that is expressed through conceptions and movements of time, as it impacts on how the body and the soul is constantly shifting and constantly changing. So where Hume will look at reality as the middle through another, through vivacity, through intensity, and have passions, the way you exist in the world, come later. For Spinoza, it's the passions that come first, and then they allow you to understand what it is to be in the world, and they allow it because they are the price you have to pay as you are within the world. And you can only go back to the middle through another once you've understood what those passions are and how they allow you to navigate where you are within the world. They are almost arguments that are inversions of each other, because they've taken different positions about what it is to be in the world and what the mind can learn about the world. For Hume, you simply have to take the world as it is. He's a bright-sized fanatic. He would say, well, we don't know anything beyond our perceptions. He's accepted Berkeley. For Spinoza, you can't make that move. You have to assume that the mind is automatically already part of what it is perceiving and wire that into the way you do perceive. For the modern mind, I guess, the Spinoza position is more enticing. It's the way we feel that we are, caught up within a world where our very consciousness is part of some great quantum fabric. But the Hume position has a lot of merit to it. It should never be lightly thrown away, because there is a side in which we actually only understand the world through our perceptions, and Spinoza knows that. If you cannot form adequate ideas, then you would always have to be a Humean at the last.